Hi, this is Miss Slitton, and this is my wonderful Period 4 Honors Bio class again. Say hi. Hi. You're so cute. Okay, and now we're going to talk about oxidation and reduction, and I need to take you back to when we first started talking about this chapter. Okay, we talked about the sun, and plants can use the energy from the sun in order to do what process? Photosynthesis. What else do they have to use?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. What else do they need? Water. Okay? And when plants do photosynthesis, they're going to take carbon dioxide and build what with it? Glucose. Good. So you're going from 6 CO2s to 1 glucose molecule. 6 CO2s to 1 glucose. You follow me on that? Why did I say 6 CO2s? What's the formula for glucose?
C6H12.
What? Okay, C6H12O6.
Did you leave these in my room, or do you have your stack?
I have my stack.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a double stack.
Hello.
That's Miss Chevalier talking.
Entropy. Are we talking entropy right now?
No, oxidation and reduction, and we're recording you at this very moment. That's Miss Chevalier. She's very smart and kind. All right. Okay, so C6H12O6 is what glucose is. So we've got to hook all these CO2s together. When you hook molecules together, they are joined by what? Bonds. What makes up a bond? Electrons. All right. So we have to somehow give CO2 electrons so it can make what? Bonds. Glucose. All right. So I've dealt with the CO2. Why do we need the sun? We need the sun for some what? Energy. And we have the CO2. Who's our other component we use? Water. Guess where we're going to get the electrons from? Water. That's where you get the electrons from in order to build your glucose molecule. So I need to talk to you about how electrons get transferred, one molecule to another. So I'm holding 2 electrons right now. I am passing them off. Did I just gain or lose energy? I lost energy. She gained energy. When you gain energy via gaining electrons, that's called being reduced. Why would I use a word like reduced to tell her that she's got more energy? Yes?
Yeah, it's negative.
Thank you. Electrons are what charge? Negative. So even though she's getting reduced, she is gaining more energy. The term you use to talk about me, the opposite of reduced, and this happened at the same time. When she got reduced, I got oxidized. Okay, so why is that term? Let's talk about that. How many valence electrons does hydrogen have? How many valence electrons does hydrogen have? 1. Is hydrogen a happy molecule? No. Why isn't hydrogen happy? Yeah, for that first energy level, he needs how many? 2. So hydrogen tends to do what with his electrons? He can either share them or give them up entirely. Share or give them up. He is a very kind friend. Okay? He's always saying, oh, you need some energy? Here, I have it. I want you to think about your friends for a moment. You have your friends that are very kind. They're loving to you. When you're in a pinch, they help you out. They're eating some chips at nutrition, and they just say, you want some? They're very loving to you. Those are your hydrogen friends. Now I want you to think about your other friends. Let's call them that they're in the basket of deplorables. Okay? Yeah, always a reference. In these other friends, these are what I would call your mooching friends. Okay? They always want to copy your homework, maybe your terms per se. They never do the additional objectives. They always want a ride. They always eat all your food. Okay? Now, stop pointing to people in the room. Now, in your mind, not with a real Sharpie, you would put an H on top of your loving friends' foreheads. And you would put an O for oxygen on your selfish friends. Some of you are self-marking. You're like, I'm an oxygen. Now, Oxygen, whenever you hook up with oxygen, oxygen will take your electrons. He's very electronegative. He'll say, I'll share with you, but over here. He's very electronegative. He pulls the electrons in. Whereas hydrogen is like, okay. All right, and always giving those electrons up. So when you hear the words reduced and oxidized, one's gaining energy, one's losing energy in that process. So take a look at these gentlemen I have up here. There's a baton. What do you think I want that baton to represent? I want that baton to represent an electron. One of these individuals is in the process of getting reduced, and one of these individuals is in the process of getting oxidized. It will happen at the same time. Remember, just like we said, if this is hypertonic, this has to be hypo. You can't say it in a vacuum. So if something's gaining electrons, something has to be losing it. Okay? Guy in the front, is he getting reduced or is he getting oxidized? Reduced. He's getting reduced. And why are you saying that?
He's gaining.
He's gaining the electron, the baton. The guy in the back is getting what?
Reduced.
Oxidized. This is called a redox reaction because it occurs at the same time. Now, you've already told me we want to build glucose when we do photosynthesis. We have to give CO2 some electrons. Yes? Who are we to get those electrons from? Water. If water gives up his electrons, it's referred to as getting oxidized, and the CO2 will gain those electrons. He's going to become what? Reduced. Now, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Okay? If I am water, okay, I will hand my electrons off to an intermediary who will hold on to them temporarily, except my intermediary right now just got what? Reduced. And I just got what? Oxidized. And then they can be passed on, and now she just got reduced and, sorry, she just got oxidized and she just got reduced. So you can pass them along in a series of redox reactions. Youngest bio buddy, this slide belongs to you. Explain it.
So I was going to reduce the
Stop eating in class, Sam. Now, look over here. Are you chewing gum? Oh, I don't care if you chew gum. If you are eating, then I want some of it. Okay, so in this case, who got reduced? A or B? Who? B got reduced by gaining these electrons, right? And the electrons that were with A now got given to B, right? And as A lost their electrons, they got oxidized. Now, that phrase oxidized, do you see any oxygen binding on there? No, I don't see any oxygen binding. That's just a phrase to explain when you lose electrons, you got oxidized, and when you gain electrons, you get reduced. Okay, so to talk about how can you become reduced, well, you can hook up with hydrogen, bind to hydrogen, or you can break up with, that's not a very chemistry term there, but you can break up with who in order to get reduced? Get rid of who? Oxygen. Okay? To get reduced, you have to gain electrons. You can gain electrons in one of two ways. Hook up with your giving friend, hydrogen, he'll give you some electrons, or break up with your bad friend, oxygen. Okay? So now explain oxidized to your bio buddy. What are the two ways you could get oxidized?
oxidized.
You can stay with oxygen.
When you're oxidized, you lose electrons, but you're positive charge. And then when you're
So if I get oxidized, what's happening to me? I'm losing energy, right? What are the two ways I could lose those electrons? I could hook up with oxygen, because he's always going to take them from me. Or I could end up breaking up with my good friend who? Hydrogen. Either way, I will end up getting oxidized. Okay? All right, good. So this is how electrons get passed. Now, let's apply it. Who explained this one? Youngest? Youngest? Oldest? This is yours. Do a little talk.
Solar energy, and the sun gives the energy to the
All right. So a chloroplast uses what? CO2 and H2O and energy from the sun in order to make what? Carbohydrates. What's the name of that carbohydrate? Glucose. What's the formula for it? C6H12O6. Remember how we talked about carbohydrate? It's carbohydrate, right? So you can always figure out the formula. Okay, there's something missing here. What else gets generated besides glucose?
Oxygen.
Oxygen gas, yes? Okay, that's a byproduct of it. Okay, now this oxygen and this carbohydrate is going in this mighty what? Mitochondria, and it's going to generate as a byproduct water and CO2. Breathe in, breathe out. That was your breakfast. You were just exhaling your breakfast. Okay? When you break down glucose, you break it back into CO2. Okay? And that metabolic process, that's your end product of it. Okay? But also, we're going to do this whole process so we can generate some what? ATP. Okay? This reaction that the chloroplast does, we're putting energy into this. So overall, it's going to be a what kind of reaction? Endergonic. And breaking down and burning the glucose overall is going to be a exergonic reaction, which we're going to couple to the process of synthesizing ATP. We're going to couple an exergonic reaction with a endergonic reaction, and our endergonic reaction is going to be the synthesis of ATP. Yes?
So are endergonic reactions always synthesis reactions and exergonic always compositions, or does it?
I think it can vary. So I don't think you want to do it in that process. Just think of it as following the energy. So some reactions will release energy, some reactions will require energy. Follow the energy and then you know if it's exergonic or endergonic. Okay, but that was a good question that you asked. All right, now take a look at this. Whose turn is it again? Youngest, this is you. Go.
Okay, so
Respiration. You break down that glucose and you end up with energy.
Okay, now come back to me. The reactants of one are the what? Products of the other, vice versa, right? Okay, now let's put it all together, okay? Thinking cap is on. You'll totally manage this. You can see if I'm going left to right, what reaction am I doing? Photosynthesis. And if I go right to left, what am I doing? Cellular respiration, okay? Now, just hang on, then I'll go there. Okay, so when we look at this right here, here's CO2 in photosynthesis, like plants could do photosynthesis, right? They're going to take this CO2 and they're going to make glucose out of it. We're good? Okay? And the water is going to become the oxygen. Redox reactions always happen hand in hand. So CO2 right here became glucose. Did it get reduced or did it get oxidized? Reduced. And why do you say that? Here it's carbon and oxygen, and here it's what? Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So the CO2 got what again? Reduced. Okay, look at the water. Here it was water, and now it's just plain old oxygen. Did it get reduced or did it get oxidized? And when it happens at the same time, it's called a redox reaction. Do you agree? Now, in order to reduce something, what do you need? You need energy or electrons. Who's going to be the source of our electrons? Water. See these hydrogens right here? How many do you have of them? 12. Do you see that? The hydrogens that were in the water got given to glucose in order to reduce it. Okay? Yes? Yes? Now remember how I said there's always an intermediary in between? I want to tell you the name of that. That intermediary is called NADP. It's like nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. But you don't need to know that. You just need to know NADP. Okay? Now, to make this reaction go, you need energy. Energy comes from the what? The sun. Overall, since energy is on our reactant side, is this going to be an endergonic reaction or an exergonic reaction?
Ender.
Endergonic, because it's on our reactant side, we're putting energy what? In. Okay? So this is an endergonic reaction because we're putting energy into this system. Where is this reaction taking place? In the chloroplast. All right. Now, ready? Let's go the other direction. Now let's do cellular respiration. When you and I do cellular respiration, and when plants do cellular respiration in their mitochondria, this glucose is going to become what? CO2. And this oxygen is going to become what? Water. Did it get reduced? Did the oxygen get reduced or did it get oxidized? Which one? Because it was O2 and now it's H2O. So it got reduced. Okay? And what happened to the glucose? It got oxidized. You need oxygen to build a fire, don't you? You have to have oxygen to burn something. You're oxidizing it. If you put a candle and cover the candle up with a glass, what will happen to the fire? It goes out. Because you run out of what? Oxygen. Because you're burning, you're breaking it down. The energy transfer molecule is not NADP. It's another one, it's called NAD. And there's another one too called FAD. That's our intermediary. Don't take it yet, I'm going to have to put a little more on there. Okay, now, when we do this reaction, okay, we end up, when we go this way, as energy being a product. What's the name of that energy that we're trying to produce? ATP. Okay, so we end up getting ATP out of it. So is it an exergonic or an endergonic reaction? Exergonic, because we're releasing that energy. Okay, so exergonic. And where is this taking place? In the mitochondria. Mitochondria is plural, mitochondrion is singular. Okay, that's the big ticket. That's life, folks. That's how energy moves through life, a series of electrons. This is the picture you want to snap and stick in your notes in that box where it says, you may want to take a picture here.
Oh, I should probably put on here. You can do it. Image. From camera. Right there. There we go. Oh, Miss Liddon's not in it. That picture was so funny.
I know. And
Wait, it's so intense. It was
I was.
great.
I'm very emphatic about my teaching. I want you to learn. And okay, we good? Not it. Pick one of them to explain, either cellular respiration or photosynthesis. One does one does the other.
Photosynthesis. So the CO2 gets reduced into. It's like a perfect teaching.
Am I holding something?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm holding a pin. Oh, I can see it now. That is so
Like to hang it up right there. It's a great example because you're
Yes, I
very
might use that.
So, and then
Do you feel smart?
yes.
Yes.
I feel so smart.
You should feel super smart right now.
I'm going to use this information to make my Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and I'm going to base it
Right there.
Awesome. Hashtag awesome sauce.
Hashtag
Okay. Now, circle of life, Simba. Let's go way back to the beginning. Do you remember when we talked about, how do we measure disorder?
Entropy.
Entropy. Okay. And we talked about how, and this happens in both of these reactions. You concentrate hydrogen ions to one side of a membrane. Remember that part? And when we concentrate them on one side of the membrane, we have a lot of potential energy, right? And we can harvest that potential energy in order to synthesize what? What molecule can we make? ATP. By letting them go across our membrane, yes? Okay. So that's going to happen in both of them. And when I talked to you about it, I probably introduced it about playing hot potato. And in photosynthesis, what is our microwave to cook our potato? The sun. And so those electrons get risen to a higher level. And so here are my electrons, and they have a lot of energy. And now I'm going to pass these electrons with all of this energy. And by the way, where did I get these electrons from? I got them from water. Okay, see how smart you are? And I'm going to pass them along through a series down this membrane of redox reactions. And I actually have a YouTube video on this, just showing this with students, so you can look it up if you want to, if that will help you. But you pass these electrons along, and this electron transport chain, molecules in there, coenzymes, get excited and can move hydrogens to one side of that membrane. When we let them come back through, we can then make ATP. So if we look here, here's your electron transport chain, and notice reduced, and then he passes it on, this level gets reduced and this level gets oxidized, redox, 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 and as these electrons get passed along, we can use that energy to concentrate hydrogen ions to one side. That's an ETC, an electron transport chain. A consequence of doing the electron transport chain is that when these hydrogen ions want to go back through this membrane, we can use that to make some what? ATP. And this happens on the membranes of both mitochondria and chloroplasts. Take a look right here. Here's a phospholipid bilayer. Right here, this protein is taking hydrogen ions and putting them on one side of the membrane. Now, as they get concentrated out there, you know this. On that side of the membrane, there's going to be a difference. What are the three differences? A difference in pH, concentration, not temperature, charge. Okay? So now they are very motivated to come back through. When they come back through, what can we generate? ATP. Now look right here, my friends, because we, in this chapter, learned about enzymes. And we know proteins in membranes, one of their jobs can be enzymatic. Now look right here. This protein's name is called ATP Synthase. What do we know about ACE? Enzyme name, right? Syntha sounds like it's what? Synthesizing. ATP synthase what? Complex. And it's going to generate ATP for us. This, okay, electron transport chain is getting coupled with the ability to make ATP. Okay, those two. And that happens on both the membranes of mitochondria and on the membranes of chloroplasts. Whose turn is it to explain something? Whoever that is, go for it right now.
Go for it. All right.
concentrated on the outside.
Okay, now come back to me on your notes. Let's look at your notes. Electron transport chain and ATP production. This is a coupled reaction because we're coupling this this electron transport chain with the making of ATP. Okay, it's a coupled reaction. High energy electrons are delivered to the system and low energy electrons leave. High energy electrons are delivered to the system and low energy electrons leave. It is a series of redox reactions. Every time electrons transfer to a new carrier, energy is released to pump hydrogen ions. Right here, and that's occurring right there. Energy is used to pump hydrogen ions to one side of the membrane. Pump hydrogen ions to one side of the membrane. An electrochemical gradient is established. It is a difference in what three things? pH, charge, concentration. Good. Carrier proteins allow hydrogen ions. Carrier proteins, here it is, right here. Carrier proteins allow hydrogen ions to flow down their concentration gradient, and this energy is used to synthesize what? ATP. Hashtag awesome sauce. You did great. That's good. That's good. Okay. The end on that. Yay. Okay. Now I want to talk to you about your lab. If you're doing this late at night, have a piece of toast. Okay. I love you.